Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. In this week's program, International Women's Day special from Nepal, Bangladesh and Hong Kong. Fact-finding report on Cambodia riots released. Baloch Long March on its 107th day. 2 men tortured and shot in West Sumatra, Indonesia. Ming Pow attack triggers Hong Kong Press Freedom March. Stay with us for more on these issues. Welcome to Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. I'm Josephina Burston. On March 8, the world celebrates International Women's Day. In Asia, women still struggle with severe inequalities, entrenched patriarchal cultures and violence. Some South Asian countries regularly place high up on lists of countries with the most extreme gender gaps. We will highlight this important day with a number of stories from around Asia in this and the next episode of our weekly roundup. We start in Bangladesh, where women struggle endlessly to survive with safety and dignity. Manifold discriminations are still part and parcel of women's daily life there. Attitudes to women in Bangladeshi society has seen only limited changes in the 21st century, and hundreds of thousands of women and girls are exposed to extreme violence every year. One of the central reasons for this violence is dowry. Marriage and dowry are still inseparable in Bangladesh, and the bride's family is expected to pay dowry to the groom's family. This tradition is equally persistent in rural and urban areas. Education and socioeconomic levels may also make little difference, although the size and content of the dowry may differ. The poor bargain for cash, electronics and vehicles like motorbikes. The middle classes are expected to pay for household furniture and cars, whereas the elites give away luxury goods, all for the sake of satisfying the groom's family. In reality, often no amount of dowry is enough to secure the safety of the bride. Almost every woman faces harassment by her in-laws for insufficient dowry. Thousands of women face physical assault by their spouses and in-laws, sometimes leading to the murder of the woman. Despite the Dowry Prohibition Act of 1980, along with other laws for the protection of women, legislation has failed to cure this social cancer from the Bangladeshi society. Just as the world is getting ready to celebrate International Women's Day, Dalit women were attacked in a caste-related incident in Chanja Udayapur, VDC in Siraha district of Nepal. The whole Dalit village was attacked on February 24th by non-Dalit men, injuring 6 Dalit women, including Sumari Devi Sada. The incident happened when Sumari Devi had an argument with a non-Dalit man while using a public well to collect drinking water. The non-Dalits entered the Dalit houses and beat up the women for using the public well. The victims have registered a complaint against more than 24 non-Dalit men. 35 Dalit families rely on the well, as most other wells in the area have dried up. This kind of harassment is common for Dalit women in Nepal, although caste-based discrimination is illegal. A Dalit woman in Nepal faces threefold discrimination: being Dalit, being a woman, and being poor, and end up being treated as second-class citizens. The Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination and the Caste-Based Discrimination and Untouchability Act of 2011 in Nepal has not been effective in upholding the rights of Dalit women and provide remedies. In fact, police often add to the discrimination and harassment if victims seek redress through the law. Domestic helpers in Hong Kong suffer far more abuse at the hands of their employers than has previously been assumed. These are the findings of a number of recent investigations conducted with Hong Kong's many primarily Filipino and Indonesian domestic workers employed in Hong Kong. Hong Kong laws, which require all domestic workers to live with their employers, leave them vulnerable to ill treatment. Verbal and physical abuse is common, as is lack of living space, denial of a day off, and underpayment. Employment agencies have been found to overcharge their fees so that the workers sometimes spend many months before they get to keep any of their salary for themselves. In early January, we reported on the case of Erwiana, the Indonesian maid who suffered 8 months of severe abuse at the hands of her employer before she was sent back to Indonesia when she was too ill to continue to work. Fortunately, the case came to light, despite threats from the employer. Erwiana spent weeks in hospital in Java with serious injuries and severely malnourished. we caught up with Enu Lestari of the Indonesian Migrant Workers Association, who are assisting Ariana. She has just returned from Indonesia, where she met the victim.
So we went there to explain detail of our claim, from the criminal case, from a civil claim, and also our campaign and what the family should assist in the process. And we also want to make sure Ariana's health condition, and we talked to the hospital. They found out she is having problem with the nose infection. You know, there is cyanosis that cannot go out. Now it caused her infection on the nose because the nose was broken because of the employer, hit in the past. And there is still a swollen nerve in her head, and the hospital is still also doing something for that. On her back, she has been wearing tight on her body so she can stand still, because she is complaining of pain whenever she sits too long, or she cannot bend down. She's not allowed to carry heavy things. And she is always in dizziness a lot. She is always asleep everywhere. She sleeps a lot. And there is swollen, her eye is still swollen in this side, in the left side. The second hearing will be held on the 25th of March in Kuntong Magistracy Court. And we learned from our lawyer here, it is not a trial, it is only a mention hearing. Both sides, both lawyer will exchange information, and the employer will be asked whether she wants to plead guilty in advance. If she said no, there will be trial where Ariana and the rest of the victim and the expert witnesses will be required to attend the hearing. And we still do not know when it's going to be. In Hong Kong itself, after case of Ariana, there are so many people coming to us for help. We actually now handle a lot of serious cases, from injury, from accidents, and recently an Indonesian was chopped on their hand, on finger by the employer. We also took care of her case, and more people now bring complaints to us, and I think that's a good sign, because people know there is a way of seeking justice.
And now to Cambodia, where a fact-finding team has presented its findings on the violent government crackdown on garment factory demonstrators at the end of 2013 and first week of January this year. The AHRC participated in the fact-finding mission along with an international team of labor activists, academics, and human rights defenders. Here is what they found.
The objective of this fact-finding mission is to investigate and to understand from the workers' perspective why they took a street and what happened during the incidents, and who should be held responsibility for the violence. So the crackdown killed at least 4 workers. 1 person remained missing and presumed dead. Severely injured 38 workers, and till now 21 of the detained are still in prison.
Since the fact-finding team finished, so the killed people, the dead workers during the strike, still working with the human rights organization to file a complaint against the murders, against the killers. They also plan to file a complaint in Cambodia court and also to the international court.
Our conclusions: first, poverty wages and miserable working conditions drove workers to protest. Second, lack of democratic space to address workers' concerns. It shows in the decisions of the increasing of the minimum wage, only to eventually $100. And third conclusions is that the violence repressions of workers' protests causing death was unprecedented, excessive and unnecessary, causing a human rights emergency. We propose as a way ahead that the government to stop the repression and the persecution. Second, to take concrete measures to improve working conditions. And third, to provide space for dialogue and discussions in terms of work conditions and the living wage.
So I think none of us want to go on the street and go on the fight every year and every moment. We all want to rest peacefully, but the big problem is the injustice. The big problem in Cambodia is the unfair of economy distribution, and also the poor quality of juridical system for people. And the last part is the very low wage for garment and textile workers in Cambodia. So they have been suffering for this for the last 10, 15 years. So I think, and now there are also a lot of problem about land grabbing and also the environmental destroying by many big corporation, and the land was being what we call stolen by the big corporation and evicted the people to far away from the city, living with a very poor working condition. So all these things are currently happening in Cambodia. So that is why people are no longer patient on this worst situation anymore. So people have to stand up, have to fight for the futures. They cannot go back, they have to go forward for their better futures.
The long march continues in Pakistan, today entering its 107th day on the road from Quetta to Karachi and on to Islamabad. They mark their arrival in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, with a rally and march past the Parliament building before reaching the Islamabad Press Club. The Baloch marchers, along with hundreds of other Baloch students, human rights activists and social activists, staged a sit-in protest outside the Press Club and addressed the media. The marchers are protesting against extrajudicial killings and disappearances in Balochistan. Many of the marchers are relatives of the victims and includes an 11-year-old child and a 72-year-old man. The Pakistan Army and other security agencies are accused of abducting more than 10,000 Balochis from different areas of Balochistan. More than 2,000 of these have been killed. 2 men were beaten, electrocuted and shot in the legs by unidentified officers of Padang Selatan Sub-District Police and Padang District Police in West Sumatra, Indonesia. The victims, Oki and Andy, were arrested on February 6, accused in a bag theft case. Following the arrest, Oki and Andy were brought to the police stations where they were forced to confess to the crime. Later that night, they were taken out by the police to a remote area where they were shot in their legs, despite posing no threat or attempting to escape. Oki and Andy have been denied adequate medical treatment and 1 bullet remains lodged in Andy's leg. The police told local media in Padang that the shootings were inevitable as Andy and Oki tried to escape, and also claimed that Andy and Oki were responsible for the theft, contradicting witnesses that said both men were at work in a factory when the crime took place. Thousands of protesters have marched outside Hong Kong government headquarters to condemn the brutal knife attack on the former newspaper chief editor of Ming Pao and to voice support for press freedom amid growing concern over Beijing's influence in the Hong Kong media. Organizers put the number of demonstrators at 13,000, while police said there were 8,600 at the peak. In the triad-like attack, Kevin Lau Chunto was stabbed in the back and legs by a man who then rode off on a motorcycle with an accomplice. No one has been arrested in connection with the attack. Lau was seriously injured with deep cuts but was able to leave the intensive care unit of the hospital on Saturday. Lau was in January replaced at Ming Pao by a Malaysian Chinese journalist with pro-Beijing leanings, causing a revolt among the paper's journalists who feared the undermining of the paper's independence. In recent years, Hong Kong journalists and rights groups have warned that Chinese officials are influencing Hong Kong media, pushing for self-censorship of China-critical stories and deepening ties between Hong Kong media bosses and Beijing. That is all for this week's Human Rights Asia Weekly Roundup. For more information on these issues, log on to www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and hope to see you again next week.